Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Sap, the end of the season is here. We need to do a wrap up on the season, and we need to give out awards as we do at the end of every season. I'm excited. I wanted to do first through 10th team All NBA, but I limited it to the actual first through third team All NBA. We got every single award. So Sap, let's just start with you, Sap. Do you want to start with the first teams? Do you want to start with some individual awards? I will let you
with individual awards. Build up some drama. And then when we do the first, second, and third team All NBA, we'll go third, second, and first, and then end it with the MVP. How's that sound?
Okay. I want to start off by saying I think it was a really exciting year in the NBA, specifically in the Eastern Conference, because we got just so much drama down the stretch. As we talked about in our last podcast, the Eastern Conference was so deep. And look at 2 through 4 in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics, the Bucks, and the Sixers all had the exact same record to finish the season, 51-31. The Heat finished atop the conference, 53-29. Below the Celtics, the Sixers, and the Bucks were the Raptors at 48-34. Like, it was neck and neck towards the end. So really exciting in the East. And then you had this wagon of a team, Phoenix in the West, who was, kind of on a redemption tour. You saw a revitalization of the Golden State Warriors. The Memphis Grizzlies have come on, and you're seeing a lot of these young stars start to establish themselves in the NBA. So I think overall, really good season for the NBA. Especially after getting over that initial COVID hump at the beginning of the year. How did you think of the year, Sap?
Yeah, it's so wide open. That's what I like. We're going into the playoffs. You look at Phoenix, they clearly have the best record. They went to the finals last year, but they're not an overwhelming favorite to win it. Memphis is a team that people aren't sure of yet because we don't know much about them other than Ja Morant, but they're an outstanding team. Golden State, if healthy, they're a title contender. The likes of Dallas, Utah, and Denver, I think it would be a surprise if any of those 3 teams made it to the finals. Although if Luca's healthy, he could carry a Dallas team as far as anyone. But then, you look at the Eastern Conference. I mean, Miami had the best record, but most people think Brooklyn's the favorite or Milwaukee's the favorite, the defending champs. The Celtics have played better than anybody in the East for the last half of the season. Philadelphia is intriguing, but now they've got a tough matchup against Toronto, which is playing great basketball. Even the play-in tournament should be interesting. Obviously, Brooklyn is a team no one wants to play. And then you've got a good Cleveland team, which faltered down the stretch, but was a nice surprise this year. And Atlanta's playing as well as they did at the end of last year. So they could be a nightmare. And we know Charlotte has a lot of talent. So, it's more spread out. This isn't the 4-year stretch where it was, okay, LeBron's going to face Golden State in the finals, and anything else will be a major surprise. We sit here at the start of the playoffs. I mean, you're going to get a lot of different opinions. I would say Milwaukee, Phoenix, maybe a repeat, but if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be shocked. If Brooklyn catches fire and gets to the finals and Golden State gets healthy, that could be the finals. Or Memphis could surprise everyone with that great defense. The Celtics could make a run as strong as anyone else. I mean, it's wide open this year. And sometimes we're forgetting the team that had the best record in the East, the Miami Heat, because they don't have a Durant or, an Embiid at the top of their roster, but they're really maybe the best constructed team in the NBA. They and Phoenix, I think, are the 2 best constructed teams in the league, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily translate to great playoff success. That's great in the regular season. It's like if you have a really strong 4 or 5 man rotation in baseball, which really is kind of like outdated at this point. But then when you get to the playoffs, you need a couple of studs to carry you. And Miami and Phoenix, do they have that? We'll find out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think an exciting year. So let's get to the awards, Sap. When we were texting about this, I think we left out most improved player and executive of the year. I'm sure that you'll be able to do it off the top of your head, but I picked them anyways. I'll start with most improved player, Sap.
Okay.
To me, it was a very competitive race for that award. And I give it to Jordan Poole from Golden State, who I think a lot of people had no idea who he was coming into the season. And they've had a lot of injuries, and they still ended up at the 3 seed. And he played the most games for them and was outstanding. Averaged 18 points a game this year. Really was a calming presence for them in terms of scoring when they lost Steph Curry. He plays good defense. He fits into their system really, really well. So I went with Jordan Poole. Other guys that were under consideration, Ja Morant. without a doubt, was spectacular. The only real reason that I didn't pick him is because he just didn't play enough games for me. Jordan Poole, I think, played 72, 73, and John Morant played 56, right around there. And then DeJounte Murray from the Spurs was phenomenal this year. So those were my three finalists for the award, Sap, but ultimately I went with Jordan Poole.
Yeah, good choice there in Jordan Poole, because again, at the beginning of the season, it's like, okay, you're going to be our Klay Thompson. But then when Klay comes back, you're going to have to kind of change a little bit. And Klay wasn't good the first few months he came back. And then, oh, by the way, Steph got hurt. So you're going to have to try to find a different way to help us. He's been outstanding. I went with a Boston Celtic on this. I went with Rob Williams. I mean, I think he improved a lot from last year, but just the fact that he played more was a big improvement. I mean, because he's never been a durable guy. Jet, he's one of the, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You're a green teamer. I'm not, but I think he means so much to that team. He's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. He's also a very good offensive player because he's so efficient, and he's an excellent passer, screener. I think he's the most improved player. And with him in the lineup, the Celtics clearly had the best defensive team in the NBA. And even when he got hurt towards the end of the season, they still maintained a solid defense, but it wasn't like it was with Rob Williams. I'm going Rob Williams, most improved player.
I think that that's a totally legitimate case, and he's absolutely made a huge leap this year, specifically in the second half of the season, and that's when the Celtics started to come on strong, is when Rob Williams started to come on even more strong. So I think that there's definitely a good case to be made for Rob Williams, and I love the fact that you picked the Celtics, Sap. I'm very happy with you.
Yeah, see?
Executive of the year, Sap. I know a lot of people are leaning towards the guy whose name I can't pronounce on Chicago. Who made the bold moves of bringing in DeMar DeRozan and Lonzo Ball, and those have worked out really well. But I'm going to go with an old standard and go with Pat Riley, who you talked about a second ago. I think probably the best constructed team besides Phoenix in the NBA. He was able to land Kyle Lowry in the offseason, PJ Tucker. They've both fit in seamlessly, as you knew they would, because they were the exact type of Heat players that you've come to expect over the years. And I think Pat Riley still has his fastball at, how old is Pat Riley now, Sap, in his late 70s?
74, 75. I mean, he's the most well-tanned man in America. I mean, he's living life to its fullest. Yeah, I think Pat Riley's 75, if I'm not mistaken. He still looks really good. And again, yeah, like Jerry West, even late in life, they have their fastball. Yeah, that's a great choice, because he knows how to construct a team. He really does. And even you look when they had LeBron, Wade, Bosh, he knew how to construct that team. He stuck by Eric Spoelstra as his coach. You know, LeBron probably would have been best served staying in Miami. I think he would have won 2 championships after leaving Miami. I don't know how many more he would have won in Miami, because Wade was getting old and Bosh was getting old.
Riley would have figured out how to put a better team
Riley
around
would have figured it out. Yeah. It's just that Riley was one executive who let LeBron know, no, I run things here. You're a player. I run things here. Spoelstra's the coach. You play and we'll be fine. And that may have been better served for LeBron in terms of winning championships. And as much as like Jordan pushed back against Jerry Krause, you know, sometimes you need to have the separation of power to really build a strong team. That's a good choice. I'm going to go with my all-time favorite executive, or my favorite executive in the league, Masai Ujiri. They finished 5th. They were dealing with, COVID issues throughout the year, because Canada has a different set of rules. And also the fact that, he loses Kawhi Leonard, still gets that team to be competitive, loses Kyle Lowry, still keeps that team competitive. I don't know if anybody drafts better than Masai Ujiri.
No.
You can make a case. You can make a case that the draft of 2021, which I think is going to give us 4 really good players, he may have ended up with the rookie of the year. I know we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And Scotty Barnes. When he took Scotty Barnes, I'm like, why are they taking Scotty Barnes?
Right.
This seems like a reach. Well, we've seen this year that Scotty Barnes may be rookie of the year. So I'll go with Masai Ujiri, who to me is the best executive in the sport, along with the likes of Pat Riley, obviously. If the Lakers really wanted to do the right thing, you'd reach out to Masai Ujiri to be their executive, but he's very well compensated and very happy in Toronto.
Yeah, and no drama, which is nice for him. But yeah, no, he's a great choice. He could win in any year. I think the 2 teams that draft the best, Sap, are the Denver Nuggets and the Toronto Raptors. They do a phenomenal job. They find gems all over the place. And yeah, I mean, he's terrific at it. Really take it. I mean, they're from their finals team, Sap. They've lost their 2 best players. And they're right there in the Eastern Conference. They've been playing as well as anybody. They've been rolling recently. And they look like, I think a lot of people were picking them to miss the playoffs entirely this year. And here they are at the 5 seed, and they're playing Philadelphia. And I think a lot of people think that they can legitimately beat Philadelphia. So we'll see. And, they're led by Siakam, who's an unheralded draft pick. Van Vliet was a not drafted. Like you said, they nailed the Scotty Barnes pick. So he's a phenomenal executive, and you can never go wrong with him. I didn't even think to put sixth man of the year because I think it's pretty obviously Tyler Hero. He averaged 20 points off the bench. It hasn't been a particularly competitive sixth man of the year award. So we don't have to talk more about the Heat. We've already talked about them plenty.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Tyler Hero's the best sixth man in the league without question.
Okay, let's go to rookie of the year, Sap, since you were talking about that earlier. Who do you got?
I got Scotty Barnes. And the reason being, look, Cade Cunningham's been excellent in Detroit, Jalen Green in Houston, Scotty Barnes in Toronto. And the third pick in the draft was Evan Mobley, who's been outstanding in Cleveland. All four of those guys are deserving. I hope it's a close race. It looks like it's one of those races that could be razor close among the four players. The thing is that Cade Cunningham in Detroit and Jalen Green in Houston, they're playing on teams that are horrible. So they can put up numbers and they're kind of shallow. Evan Mobley's played really well on a Cleveland team that surprised and made the playoffs. And Scotty Barnes has played really well on a Toronto team that's made the playoffs. He's played more games than the other three. His raw numbers are better. I think they can all play defense, all four of those guys, but he's maybe the most versatile defender. I go with Scotty Barnes, but it's going to be close. And I still get the feeling that Cade Cunningham may win it because he was the first pick. He's very likable. He's a really good all-around player. And, the voters may look and say, well, he, was picked first and deserves it. But I'll go with Scotty Barnes of the Toronto Raptors, who was the fourth pick in the draft. But all four of these guys can play.
Yeah, and it's sort of the season's been interesting in that race, as it has in a lot of these races. We'll talk about the MVP last, but that's been fascinating too. This at one point was Evan Mobley's award to lose. At one point it was Scotty Barnes' award to lose. They both, and they haven't really done anything to lose it. They've played phenomenal the whole year. I'm picking Cade Cunningham. He did end up leading all rookies in scores. And what I really liked about Cade Cunningham is once he figured it out, he really figured it out and came on really strong. And Detroit, their win total was not good. I mean, we can all look at just the standings. They finished second to last in the East, 23 wins, but they were giving teams a really hard time, and they were close in a lot of these games towards down the stretch against good teams. They beat Boston, one of the few teams to beat Boston in the second half of the year, and they were playing tough against the top teams. And I think that's the sign of progress, that you start to lose small, and then eventually you win those close games. And I think by the end of the year, it was pretty clear Cade Cunningham was the best player on that team, and he was holding his own against other really, really good players throughout the NBA. So while it should be really, you should look at the whole body of the work and the whole year. And I think Mobley and Barnes deserve a lot of credit for being on winning teams. I look at it as the reason I'm giving it to Cunningham is at their best, at their peak of this season. I think Cunningham played the best of those guys.
Yeah, and he can do so many things, right? He can make other players better. He's an excellent ball handler, passer. I mean, he may be, this is saying a lot, but he may be I hate to say this, the best all-around or the most finished product to come into the league since LeBron in terms of doing everything. I'm not saying he's going to be
17, 5, and 5, Sap. I mean, those for rookie?
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, so next year you would think he's going to be around 21, 6, and 7 or somewhere around there. And again, just get better every year. So yeah, no, he's all four of those guys are deserving. It's a really good rookie class.
Yeah, the guy who sort of disappointed was the guy we were both really high on. I know you especially was Jalen Suggs, and obviously he was on the second worst team in the league. To the Magic won 22 games; they were horrible. But it kind of didn't seem like he ever found his sea legs. And like I said, for Cunningham, it took him a while, maybe half the season, a little bit less. But then once he figured it out, he was playing phenomenal. Suggs maybe showed a flash here or there, but I don't know where his potential lies. I think when we looked at him, Sep, going back to last year in the draft, we liked his potential as a really good NBA player, but we didn't know if he had the ceiling of a superstar player.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with him. And they are guard laden in Orlando with Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz, if he, ever is able to be healthy. So I think that he was pretty disappointing in terms of his rookie season.
Yeah. I think of all the rookies, he's going to be the guy that needs to play on a good team. I mean, that's obvious to any player wants to play on a good team, but he's more of an intangibles guy. I don't think he's going to go out and score 20 points per game. He's a good defensive player, all of those things, but I don't think he can necessarily stand out on his own. If they ever get good, I think he'll be a really nice component of it, or in a short period of time, if he moves on and goes to a good team, I think he'll be a really good player.
Let's do Coach of the Year, Sap. I've got Taylor Jenkins from the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies finished with the second best record in the NBA, not just in the Western Conference, but in the entire league. They went 56-26. Taylor Jenkins, just 37 years old, too, Sap.
That's a great choice. I mean, I think we go from where they were a year ago to where they are. He's probably going to win the award. I'm going to go with Monty Williams, who I picked last year, and Tom Thibodeau won the award. The reason I'm going with Monty Williams is they made it to the finals last year. They were up 2-0. Then they lost games 3, 4, 5, and 6, lost the championship to Milwaukee. Normally when something like that happens, the team doesn't come back the next year and perform at a high level. Well, they came back this year and performed at a higher level. And I think
that's what we predicted, Sap, right? We thought that they were going to be a disappointment this year.
I thought they'd be a 4 or 5 seed. Still be really good, but, after the disappointment of that finals. And again, that was a tough finals to lose. It wasn't like they got swept and they could look in the mirror and go, okay, that Milwaukee team was a lot better than us. They could look in the mirror and say, Giannis was better than us.
Yeah, we let one guy beat us.
One guy beat us. And again, it wasn't a great final series for Monty Williams because you got to figure out a way to deal with Giannis, who I believe is the best player in the league. In fact, I know he's the best player in the league, although other people keep putting Kevin Durant in my face. But I think, and Durant's great. But Giannis can do more. Sorry. Better rebounder, better passer, better defender, as efficient a scorer. It's not as pretty, but it's as efficient. But to come back the next year, again, without a lot of changes in the roster either. It wasn't like they signed a big free agent or, Mikal Bridges improved, but you still had Chris Paul, Booker, and Ayton. I mean, how much are they going to get better? They're already stars. And to get that team to perform every single night, that's impressive. So I'm going to go with Monty Williams, who I think the Coaches Association named the other day as Coach of the Year, but he won it last year as well. But it was Tom Thibodeau who won the official award last year.
Yeah, it does seem to me like it's a two-man race between those two guys. For Monty Williams, the really impressive stuff is obviously, the record. They were 8 games better than the next closest team, which is lapping the field in NBA terms. So 64-18, which is a franchise best record. In addition to that, Sap, they had to deal with Chris Paul being out for an extended period of time. Internal investigation into their owner, Robert Sarver.
Great point.
So that
Great point.
And a tense contract negotiation with DeAndre Ayton, where the team decided to not give him a max offer. So a lot of things that could derail many teams. So the leadership of Monty Williams and obviously Chris Paul, we know his leadership and tangibles. We talked about that for virtually his whole career. You don't have to rehash it, but I think those things should be talked about in the Coach of the Year. It's not just necessarily about win-loss, which obviously he has, and it's that he's the best record in the NBA, but those things could easily derail a season. Like you mentioned, losing in the finals in disappointing fashion. And then I said, the investigation, the contract negotiations, Chris Paul being out, like a lot of those things could have really torpedoed them. Yep. Instead, they lapped the field in the NBA. So he's going to get a lot of votes. He certainly could win it. I think that him and Taylor Jenkins are virtually dead even. The reason I went with Jenkins is because the sort of tried and true, I think, who wins this award is what's the biggest surprise in the NBA. I don't know how you could say anything but the Memphis Grizzlies finishing with the second best record in the league. And in addition to that, Sap, their record without Ja Morant, also sterling. So it wasn't just like the Ja Morant show, though he was their best player. Taylor Jenkins did a great job coaching this team up when Morant missed 30 games.
They were 20-4 without Ja Morant. Now they're not better without Ja Morant, but to have your team win, 80% of its games without its best player, that's coaching. And that's the other players stepping up, right? I mean, they've got a really tough, disciplined defensive team. And again, they get more out of their talent than just about any team in the league, and they play legitimate defense, which I think always falls on the coach because he's got to get that message across. Yeah, he had a fantastic year as a coach, and again, you saw
Right,
them.
but just one All-Star on that team. You know, if you look at,
and that's
if you look
it.
at Phoenix, you know, you got Paul and Ayton's certainly a borderline All-Star, and obviously Booker is going to finish high in the MVP voting. So you got three legitimate studs. Memphis, I like Desmond Bane. I like Jaren Jackson Jr., but those guys weren't sniffing the All-Star game this year.
No. I mean, a great accomplishment there by Taylor Jenkins and Memphis. And we talked about Monty Williams. I mean, there's another coach the Lakers supposedly were interested in a couple of years ago. So it was Ty Lue, Monty Williams, Frank Vogel. And again, Vogel's a good coach, but I think Monty Williams, it's clearly shown that he and along with Ty Lue were both better than Frank Vogel. And I think would earn more respect among the players. Monty Williams may be among the most respected men in the NBA,
yes,
right?
Definitely.
I mean, can't you see that guy like in, I don't know, if Adam Silver decides to go do something else and Monty Williams gets tired of coaching, you see Monty Williams as the commissioner of the league. That's, you know, a compliment in that league because the commissioners are pretty well respected. I think he's fantastic. I always root for him, knowing what he went through, losing his wife at a very young age, and to just being that great a man. I think the players respect the hell out of him. But good choices all around for Coach of the Year.
Completely. Yeah. I don't see Adam Silver or Monty Williams giving out headphones to all the players, you know, after a tense CBA negotiation.
No.
That's, you know, that's how Major League Baseball operates. So far we've had pretty legitimate, I think, competitive races in most of these categories. And now we're going to get into, you know, the two of the biggest awards. We'll do a Defensive Player of the Year, which I think is a tight race too, and MVP, which is the tightest race I can remember in years. So we'll start with Defensive Player of the Year. Sap, you know where I'm going. You knew this going into it. I'm going with my guy, Marcus Smart. Celtics had the best defense in the NBA. He was their best defensive player, can guard positions 1 through 5. You know, I love the guy. And frankly, I give him a lot of credit for, I thought it was done with his time in Boston and that he was what he was. He didn't leave any room for improvement and he was not able to adapt. And second half of the season, he became a point guard. He focused more on his best skill, which is his defense. And he was the, this is a trope, but the captain of the defense, if you want to call it that, you know, the quarterback of the defense. And listen, I think that you can always make a strong case for the best defensive player and the best defensive team to win Defensive Player of the Year. It makes sense to me.
Could you also make a case for Rob Williams being the best defensive player, except that Marcus Smart does it in a different way? And again, I don't think a pure guard has won the award since the late 90s.
It's Gary Payton was the last one. 1996 or 97, I believe, was the last time a guard won it.
Jordan won it, you know, but I think that normally it's big wings, Kawhi, that type of player, or big guys, you know, Rudy Gobert and all of those people. Marc Gasol
won Wallace, 1 year. Right.
Ben Wallace. LeBron should have won it the year that Marc Gasol won it, but that's another discussion for another day. But but no, I think it would be an interesting choice because Marcus Smart, when he came back from some injuries in January, from that point forward, the team really took off. From that point forward, they went 33-10, but amazingly, Marcus Smart only averaged like 9 shots a game, but 6 assists. He became a true point guard. I think maybe someone talked to him. Maybe he just looked in the mirror and said, this is what I can do. I do these things really well. I'm a good facilitator. He's the best passer on the team. Good decision
and he's an excellent passer. Like he's
great
an
passer.
Underrated
great
passer. Very good at it.
As is Rob Williams. And I think a lot of these guys that are really good defenders also can read the game really well and become good passers. Believe it or not, Dennis Rodman was a pretty good passer. I mean, he didn't pile up a lot of assists. Half the time he'd get the offensive rebound and run it out to Jordan like a golden retriever and hand it to him. But he was a sneaky good passer because I think they read the game really well. Rob Williams does. Marcus Smart does. The Smart's a great choice for this. I'm going to go again because Phoenix was the best team in the league. Clearly, I think you got to kind of give them a little bit of love somewhere. I'm giving them Coach of the Year, Monty Williams, and Mikal Bridges as Defensive Player of the Year. But it's a close race with Smart and Giannis and Rob Williams. Those are the guys that'll be first team all defensive NBA. But yeah, I'll go with Mikal Bridges because again, Phoenix, just by winning 64 games, I think we got to throw them a little love and we'll give them Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I love Mikal Bridges. Love his game. You knew I would, Sep, because he's, you know, that's my type of player. Just gritty defensive. And they have him. He's so important to that team. Obviously, you talk about the main 3 guys, Paul, Booker, and Ayton, but he's so important to why they won so many games because they're saying Chris Paul still a very good defender. Booker's a pretty good
Yep.
defender. Aiton's a good defender. But Paul is, in his mid-30s. He can't do everything over the course of the game. You saw him miss a lot of games. Bridges is getting their toughest assignment every game, and he's guarding multiple positions. He's an outstanding defender. And another feather in Monty Williams' cap, Sap, going back to the coach of the year, he's developed him really, really well. He's done an exceptional job developing him to the point where, he's such a key player on a team that has legitimate championship aspirations this year. So I think he's certainly a fine choice. He's the type of defender that I like. I think that the award in today's NBA game should be rewarding perimeter defenders more than than post defenders, because that's the nature of the game. Teams take a lot more threes. The game is more perimeter oriented than ever before. It's not post oriented. I hate that Rudy Gobert wins the award every year. We've talked about this before. And also, when he plays the awesome centers like Joel Embiid, he gets killed. So, it's great. He's right. Center is the weakest position in the league. You could make a case in terms of offensive players. And so, he feasts defensively on mediocre centers. His defensive numbers are great there. But when he plays Jokic or Embiid, he gets slaughtered. So I can't stand him winning the award every year. I think the award should reflect what's the most important type of defense in the NBA now, which is perimeter defense. Smart perimeter defender. I know he defends 1 through 5. So does Bridges, but primarily perimeter defender. Gobert sticks down in the block, and he's a great shot blocker, and he does what he does really well, better than anybody. You could make the case, but the game is not based down on the low block or in the paint anymore, and it hasn't been for 10 years. So why are these big guys continuing to win the award when your defense needs to be focused on the guys who are shooting threes? I'm sorry, but that's how it is in the NBA now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if it's the Western Conference Finals, guarding Steph Curry is going to be the biggest thing for the Phoenix Suns. And it may not be Chris Paul on him all that much, but it'd be Mikal Bridges, who's such a versatile defender. So, yeah, without question. I mean, the sport's changed at this point. It's like giving Defensive Player of the Year to a middle linebacker in the NFL, when obviously cornerbacks and edge rushers are way more important than big thumping linebackers.
I think that's a great comparison.
No one has. Yeah, so let's go with one of those guys. You go with Smart, I'll go with Bridges. I think either one of those choices is very, very justified.
All right, Sap, and I believe that brings us to the main award of the year, which is MVP. We have been talking about it a lot recently, as the award has come down to the wire. There's 3 main candidates for the award. Last year's MVP, Nikola Jokic, the guy who won the MVP the 2 years prior to that, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the guy looking for his first MVP in Joel Embiid. All 3, I think, have extremely, extremely worthy cases to be made. Ultimately, and this was really hard for me, Sap. Ultimately, I ended up going with Giannis, but I'll tell you exactly how I ranked them. I put Giannis. Embiid was a really, really close second, and then Jokic third.
Yeah, I think there's a 4th candidate that you left out, and that's Luca Doncic. I mean, because I look at Dallas, the second half of the year, they played at almost the same level as the Celtics, right? And they actually beat the Celtics at TD Garden on a Sunday afternoon. They played great.
And they finished the game better than the Celtics in the standings.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at the 4 candidates that we just talked about, right? All 4 of those teams have essentially the same record. Milwaukee and Philly ended up with 51 wins apiece. Dallas had 52. Denver had 49. I'm guessing 48. So they're all about the same. And you look, and Giannis, yes, Middleton and Holiday are really good players, but they're not superstars. Embiid didn't have Ben Simmons this year. Harden's been since he got there at the trade deadline. Doncic's best player is Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, am I being
correct?
That hyperbolic there?
He is.
And Denver didn't have Jamal Murray or Michael Porter for most of the year, Michael Porter Jr. So, I mean, all 4 of those guys had to carry their teams. I'm going with Giannis because of those 4 guys. He's clearly the best defensive player. So if we got almost
that's what pushed it over the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think the guy's phenomenal. I think he's become so underrated because all I hear about is Kevin Durant's the greatest player on the planet. I'm like, well, let me see. Giannis scores more. He's as efficient as a scorer. Again, it's not as pretty, but it's just as efficient. He's a much better rebounder. he's as good, if not a slightly better passer, and he's a better defender. And oh, by the way, he's played 100 more games than Durant the last 3 years. He's more durable, and I think he's a better leader. So all of that put together, to me, Giannis is the best player in the league. They're the defending champs. He had another great year. I think he's better than Embiid and Jokic because he's better defensively, and he's better defensively than Luca. And Luca, again, early in the year was a little bit off. I mean, he showed up about 30 pounds overweight. If he had showed up in camp in shape, he may have won this award. Or if the season was a month longer, he may have won this award because he was playing at a ridiculous level. But I'll go with Giannis in a close 4-man battle. And then fifth and sixth, I'd go with Booker and Tatum. Two young studs that, Phoenix is the best team in the league, and the Celtics were phenomenal in the second half, and Tatum just keeps getting better and better. I'd put them on the outside in their future MVPs, I think. But those other four guys, to me, have separated themselves as the four most valuable players in the league.
So rank them, Seb.
I go Giannis, Embiid. I'm going to go with Luka over Jokic, only because Dallas has a better record. And again, Jokic's numbers are just, they're silly. But that's how I'd rank them. But Giannis, to me, should be the MVP. But I don't think he's going to win it. I think the Joker's going to win it.
I do too. So the advanced numbers, which I, typically like, say clearly Jokic should win it. If you're looking at just the pure advanced metrics, win shares, all that stuff, that's Jokic's case. In addition to the fact that he didn't have any of his star players. Absolutely a strong case to be made for him to win it. Embiid's case led the league in scoring. He won the scoring title. First big man since Shaq to do that. Most 40 and 10 games in NBA history in a season, which is remarkable. The fact that that's not Wilt Chamberlain, it blows my mind. I don't know how that makes possible.
No sense. That can't be possible. Wilt averaged 50 and 25 one year. That makes no sense.
Have you seen that floating around though, Sep?
It's got to be wrong. No, it's by just logic, it has to be wrong. I mean, if Wilt Chamberlain had a 40-10 night, it was a bad night. Like he averaged 50 and 25. I think, is it of the 76ers? Because Wilt's, this is really getting complicated. I think he may have just passed Moses Malone for the most in a season as a Sixer. Does that make sense? But when Wilt was putting up the ridiculous numbers, he played for the Warriors. So I don't know, because that can't be possible. But nonetheless, a great year for Embiid. And I thought he was going to win it until the last month. But I just, you know what? I think part of me going with Giannis is I just keep pushing back because people just, I think, take him for granted. Like we were talking a couple of weeks ago, JJ Redick's like, well, Durant, Embiid, and Jokic are the three best players in the league. And I'm like, has he seen Giannis play? Did he watch the playoffs
how'd they
last
win the
year?
title last year? How are they so good?
Was that just was it Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton? Nice players. He also didn't have Brook Lopez for 98% of this year, a big man. So all of a sudden, Giannis is could be defensive player of the year as well. Like I don't know where.
Sure.
I know why it happens. It's because he didn't come through the AAU system. There's a lot of pushback from the establishment. But he's the outsider.
Neither did Embiid or Joker. I guess Embiid played at Kansas, so
Embiid played at Kansas, and Jokic played in Europe. Yeah, Kansas and Jokic came from Europe, and Luca was a prodigy, right? At 15, they said this guy's going to be awesome. Like Giannis literally came from nowhere. It's like, who is this guy? And now he's the best player in the world. But there's always that kind of that pushback. But I think it's going to be another close race. It should be a close race, but I get the feeling Jokic is going to win pretty handily.
Yeah. So there's been some people who've tipped their hand already, people who have votes, and a lot of them have said Jokic. So it does look like it's going to be Jokic. Yep. So that's, but I agree with you. I'd pick Giannis. That's just how I go. All right, Sep, let's do our defensive players, our defensive team, first team, and then we'll do our first team's all NBA. Okay. I have Marcus Smart, Mikal Bridges, Jaren Jackson Jr., who I believe led the league in blocks, Rob Williams, and Bam Adebayo at center. Screw Rudy Gobert. No more Rudy Gobert.
Okay, I'm pretty much close with you there, Jed. I got Mikal Bridges, Giannis, Marcus Smart, Rob Williams, and Bam. Yeah, we almost the same.
I just snuck Jaren Jackson Jr. in there because of the blocks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and again, Memphis has the second best record, so you got to throw them a little bit of love too. Yeah, so we're right there. I think Bridges is going to be Defensive Player of the Year. Giannis is phenomenal. Bam Adebayo, again, best team in the East, and then Smart and Williams, teammates on the best defensive team in the league. So that's where I go with my all defensive team.
Sap, do you want to start with third team All NBA?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'll go for it. So the way I did this is I just kind of put 3 front court guys and 2 guards, which is, I guess, the right way to do it. You can do it that way. So that in the end, you can still have Embiid and Jokic on first team All NBA, that you don't have to put just one of them on there. So
that's
third
a good
team
strat. I didn't do that, but that's a good idea.
Yeah,
should have.
I just went with that because you can put center forwards, because I guess Embiid and Jokic are kind of labeled as center forwards, even though they're centers. I mean, damn, Jokic is like a point guard, and Embiid scores a lot from the outside and can handle the ball. So I'll go with that. Third team All NBA, I've got LeBron, Butler, Bam, DeRozan, and Curry.
Okay. I'll tell you my third team All NBA, Sap. John Morant, Trae Young, Pascal Siakam, LeBron, and Bam Adebayo, because I was doing it by pure center position.
Right. Yeah.
And I have him as the third best center.
Yeah, which is good. And I think he's deserving. I mean, he's close to a 2010 guy who also averages over 5 assists. I mean, he's almost a poor man's Giannis, right?
Well,
I mean, when you think about
you got to put Butler or him on the team, right? That he had the best record in the East, so they deserve an All NBA player.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think Butler's a fine choice too.
Yeah, I got him on there, and we didn't even mention Spoelstra for Coach of the Year. But Spoelstra's becoming like the guy that you don't even give the award to anymore, because he's generally considered one of the 3 or 4 best coaches year in and year out. So we kind of forget about him, but he's been excellent. So yeah, good team there. My second team, I got Tatum and Durant, along with Karl Anthony Towns, Ja Morant, and Trae Young. I got them on the second team. You got them on the third team. I mean, Morant did miss a lot of time, but he was out there spectacular. And Trae Young led the league in points and assists, not per game in terms of raw numbers. He led the league in both points and assists. That's pretty good for a 5'11" guy who's got his team playing pretty well. So Tatum, Durant, Karl Anthony Towns, Ja Morant, and Trae Young is my second team All NBA.
Yeah, Trae Young is a statistical phenom. And the team was actually pretty good. It doesn't look like it because they're in the play-in, but they finished over 500. And he's their best player. So I had him on the third, you have him on the second. This stat I know is true, Sap. So I don't know about the Embiid one. I saw that floating around Twitter. That might not be true. This one is true with Trae Young, first player ever in the history to lead Division I in points and assists, and then in a season, and also do it in the NBA. No one's ever done that before.
That's crazy. So, and again, what's he, 5'11"?
Yeah,
maybe 6 feet. Like that. Yeah. And again, he's not a great 3-point shooter, and I don't think he's a great athlete, right? I mean, a lot of his shots are floaters. He's not the athlete John Morant is, and he's certainly not the shooter Steph Curry is. But I mean, he's as productive as anyone. A fantastic player.
Here's my second team: Steph Curry, DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Durant, Karl Anthony Towns, and Nikola Jokic.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you put the centers separate.
I did.
But that's fine.
Which I don't think is how it should be done, but I think that's how they are going to do it. So I was trying to speculate how I think Sap All NBA should be the 5 best players. Period. That's what it should be.
Or at least say 3 forwards, 2 guards, like 3 front court guys. Because didn't Shaq and Tim Duncan make first team All NBA like every year? And I
Tim
know
Duncan
was
they never
forward.
Called himself a center, even though he played center his whole career.
Yeah, so I mean, in the same like Jokic, he's really positionless. I mean, the league is positionless basketball.
He takes the ball up the court.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging 8+ assists a game. I was like LeBron. Is LeBron really a small forward when he's leading the league in assists a couple of years ago? I mean, it's just there's the positions are much more blurred at this point than they've ever been. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting in there. We pretty much have the same players, just in different orders and slots. So my first team All NBA, I've got Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic. I think they're going to finish 1, 2, 3 in MVP voting. Luca, who is playing about as well as any player in the league. And I got Devin Booker. I mean, he's just elevated his game to the point where, again, been the best player on the best team. I don't know if he's the most important player on the best team, but he's been the best player on the best team. So I'll go with those 5 guys: Giannis, Embiid, Jokic, Luca, and Devin Booker.
Yeah, the only difference I have, Sap, is I have Jason Tatum in there because I was doing the pure center thing. So Luca, Devin Booker, Giannis, Tatum, Embiid. And I think that I like that team a lot as both a well-rounded team And I think that you could make a strong case that those guys have the 5 best seasons in the NBA, but and Jokic obviously too. So
Sure.
I would be if they do it the way that I think they do it, which is like how I did it with, true centers, which again, I don't like, but I think that's how they do it. I feel pretty confident that's what the first team is going to look like. I would be surprised if they left Giannis, Embiid, and Doncic, I think, are a lock to make. Sorry, Giannis and Doncic are a lock to make that team. I think
Yes.
Jokic probably is a lock to make that
They
team
are.
too. So it's kind of like, all right, is Booker and Tatum, they'll make one of the first two. The Suns had the best record all year long. They lapped the field. He was the best player on that team. I think he belongs there. Celtics were the best team in the second half of the season, at least in the Eastern Conference. Tatum was by far their best player. I think he deserves first team All NBA. I think if he makes second team All NBA, that's nothing to scoff at either. But
no,
I kind of think he's going to make first team All NBA based on he's going to be the beneficiary of only one center can make it, if that's how they do in fact do it.
Yep. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. And then of course this ties into contracts. And one thing I would do, and Colin Cowherd talked about this on Fox
I heard
Sports
that
1,
segment.
and I agree with him. Yeah, where he said that you should, to be eligible for first, second, or third team All NBA or MVP, you should have played at least a certain percentage of games.
He stole my idea, Sap. Remember, I said that
was your idea. That's right. Yeah. So I mean, let's say there's 82 games in a season. Let's say 65 games or 62 games.
His
so
percentage was 85, which I think was a little high.
That's a little high.
Yeah.
Little high. 80 would give you 65 games. So let's go there. So you have to play 65 games, and that may help with less load management, which I think load management is fine, but it gets to the point where it's too much and it's impacting the game. I mean, husband, wife, and 2 kids trek to a game and it's $600 for tickets and everything else, and the best players aren't playing. I'm not going to the theater to see Hamlet with the understudy of Daniel Day-Lewis. The ticket prices would reflect that. So that's what I think you have to look at going forward. Yeah, I think 65 games is fair. I mean, LeBron wouldn't have been eligible to make first, second, or third team All NBA. This is something that's going to have to be addressed in the next CBA.
Yep.
At some point, the league is going to have to tell the players, look, you've had it great for a long period of time. You got to give us a little bit back. We'll give you the money. That's not the issue. But to just make this regular season more important and get you guys out there, we've got to have a little give and take here.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, they're not going to take away money from the players, especially because the league's making so much money right now. But they can take away the accolades, which is important to players. Right. You see how important it is to Jason Tatum. He play like when he's sullen when he doesn't get these accolades, which I think it's not. Yeah. I'm not trying to knock Jason Tatum. I think that's a lot of players of his generation is like. He went to Duke. He was a top 3 pick. We talked about this before. They need to hear, you're great. You're great. You're great. You made the All-Star team. Your ex-team All NBA. He talked about this, Sep. It bothered him. He didn't make an All NBA team last year. And I think you saw that in his play at the beginning of the season. I think it bothered him.
And it's also money too, right? I mean, it cost him
a lot of money.
$4 million. I mean, look, these guys make a ton of money, but I never begrudge them from making more. Go ahead and make as much as you can, but at least it makes the player think, okay, I got to go out there and play 64, 65 games to be eligible for these awards.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I came up with it first. Colin Cowherd stole it from me.
Yep,
absolutely stole it from me. But I think that's the way to do it. Sap, the last award I want to give out is going to be, it's an annual tradition on the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, and that's the least valuable player of the year. Last year was the first year in its existence. It went to Doug McDermott, who was the worst defensive player last season on a bad Pacers team, and was also I think he had one of the few players who had like a negative win share or negative value over player, but it was really bad. This year I went a little bit different. I didn't go with the pure statistics of it. I went with a gut. Who was the least valuable player in the league this year? And I think you're going to be pleased with the award's recipient being Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I don't think there's any argument. I was going to say the same thing. Like, first of all, $47 million. I mean, if a guy's making $8 or $9 million, you go, well, what do you expect? Is this guy $47 million played every night, which again, to me, it's the guy that shows up to work every day that you look over and go, what the hell is he doing here again? Why doesn't he take vacation? Why doesn't he take some sick days? He's in the way more than he's helping us. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that that's close. They could name the award the Westbrook Award, which would go to the least valuable player in the league every year.
Yeah, here's again his raw stats are like 18, 7, and 7. Like, not bad. They look fine on paper, right? If you just were, here's a piece of paper, here's what Russell Westbrook averages this year, you'd be like, oh, pretty good. That guy's a pretty good player. But it's
right.
This is what tipped it for me. Two things. Well, I guess three, if you're including record, because they were dreadful. But the main things to me, lack of self-awareness. Just completely blamed everything else. And two, the biggest thing was inability to adapt at all. Didn't attempt to change his game at all. And that to me makes you incredibly unvaluable.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can't say it any better, Jed. You nailed it. I mean, he's just, if he didn't show up to the Lakers this year, they would have been better. And that's the true value or the true definition of least valuable. Like, if he'd never showed up to LA this year, they may have made the play-in tournament. They may have won 5 more games. He was bad. He was that bad. Defensively, horrible. Turnovers, terrible shooting percentage. Yeah, just horrible.
Well, we've looked at like super teams that have been formed before, and obviously the Lakers were not going to be a super team, even despite what they thought. But okay, Kevin Durant adapted his game a little bit to fit the Warriors. Steph Curry adapted his game too. When the Celtics formed their big three, Garnett, Pierce, and Allen all had to adapt their games a little bit differently in order to accommodate team success. Westbrook wouldn't do that. I don't know which one of it was more, if he couldn't or wouldn't. But
go back to Miami, right? Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh had to adapt to LeBron.
Great point.
He's the best player. Generally, the best player doesn't have to adapt. Like, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. Okay, let's figure it out. We've got Michael Jordan. We're not going to have him change. Although Jordan did, change somewhat because he's such a competitive, great player. And LeBron can learn to do different things because he's got so many different skills that he presents that he can do better than anyone. Yeah, Russell Westbrook. I mean, again, I've compared him to Cam Newton quite a bit. Not very self-aware. This is how I do it. Too bad. Take it or leave it. All of those things, and it just didn't work out. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He's going to be somewhere next year. He might be. I don't picture him sitting on a bench because John Wall did that this year. He's got too much of an ego. I mean, he would be
too much of an ego. And I also read, so they could waive him because you can waive whoever you want. He's not going to accept the buyout. Period.
No.
One, it's because he's not going to take less money. That would be insane. And two, I don't think he wants the stigma of it.
No.
Like, I want an MVP. I'm not a guy who gets bought out.
Oh yeah, no.
And that takes two to tango. You can't buy out somebody without the other player saying, yes, I agree to this.
Right. No, he's probably going to be on the roster next year. And who goes to him and says, like, ideally you could say, hey, Russ, you're going to be our 6th man. You come in with energy and all that. He's going to look at you and go, what are you, crazy? Whatever.
Carmelo, his teammate, was out of the league for a year and a half because he wouldn't do it.
Right. But I think Westbrook's ego is even bigger than Carmelo's.
Yeah,
without question. As much as that sounds crazy, it is. Yeah. No, he's a big personality. He's hard at it. I like him. I do. I like him. I think he does a lot of great things there. Off the court, on the court, I admire the guy, the way he busts his tail. But again, he's one of the least self-aware athletes we've ever seen. It's just like, your skill set's different now, or you're on a team that needs different things from you. Adapt. He's not very good at adapting.
Well, last point, Sap, to the guy who I gave Defensive Player of the Year to, Marcus Smart. He's gotten a lot of criticism over the year, and he adapted mid-season. He was able to figure it out and adapt and change his game. Be like, I can't do this anymore where I'm hucking up threes all the time and looking for my own shot. Right. I have Jason Tatum. I have Jaylen Brown. I don't need to take this many shots. I need to be a facilitator. This is what's going to help the team win. Russell Westbrook had Anthony Davis and LeBron James and said, I'm going to play the same way I played when I was in Oklahoma City by myself.
Yeah. Let them adapt to me. The greatest player ever, or in my opinion, the greatest player ever, and a consistent MVP candidate who's never healthy, but nonetheless a great player. You're the guy that has to change. Chris Bosh had to adapt to Wade and LeBron. He had
He looked at it and said, we were all on that top 75 NBA list. So we're all equal. Me, Anthony Davis, LeBron, equal footing going into this. But it's like, that can't be your mindset.
No, right. Yeah. Yeah.
So least valuable player, he wins it. We might name the award.
No, but that's
after him,
his.
Steph. I think
That's
that's a
what
good.
kind of makes him that determined. Yeah, I think so. That determination makes him, such an intriguing and popular player. But at some point, you have to be able to be self-aware, adapt, and try to help the team win, which is 3 things he didn't do this year.
Yeah. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for our award show, Sap, here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. And make sure you stick close to this channel and our Twitter accounts at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer, because we're going to be having a lot of content with the playoffs starting up on Saturday. The play-in tournaments underway, and we're going to have so much to talk about in the playoffs, and then looking ahead to the teams get eliminated, what they're going to do in the offseason. So you're going to want to make sure to check out the show and check out our Twitter accounts for the latest information on when the show is dropping and our different opinions. And I know Sap's going to have some good poll questions throughout the postseason. So make sure you stick here and you listen to all the shows or watch on YouTube, youtube.com/JetStryer. Thank you to Full Press Coverage for presenting the show, and we will talk to you all later. See you, everybody.